It's December. We've had Thanksgiving break recently, and we have 2 weeks coming off for winter break. So this time of year, we like to plan out a couple more movie trips than we would normally have with our kids. We've already done Zootopia 2 so far. I liked it, didn't love it. I didn't think it was as good as part one, but it had its moments. Um, we are planning on taking the kids to see Wicked 2 at some point, at least. I know we're gonna have to see it in theaters before it gets out of theaters because as much as my kids loved the soundtrack for the first one, they would regret not seeing it on the big screen. I know, and honestly, I liked it too. So I say I want to blame them, but I'll be excited to watch it. The one that my kids are most excited about, though, is the third Avatar movie, and that one comes out on my son's birthday. So that's going to be something that we're going to be one of the first handful of people at least. We're not going to be at the night before showing, but we're going to be at the matinee that Friday morning. On the home front, inside the house, I should say, we will be finishing up Gentry in the Underworld. My daughters have gotten us to be watching that, and I like it. I think it's funny. I agree with my wife though that when she says that she just doesn't like any of the characters, that none of them are come through. It's like, well, even Gentry. Um, I think that Gugu is a villain, but anyway. And we're also going to be finishing up Attack on Titan. With that, if anybody liked the first episode that I did with my kids, talking about season one of Attack on Titan, before long I'm going to start coming out the rest of the seasons, one by one, of me talking to my kids about it as we've watched through it, and yeah, that's going to be coming out at some point here in the near future. As for today, the rest of this episode is basically going to be kind of what I started at here. Um, I'm Herman Faust, by the way, and this is Enjoy It While It Lasts. Today is a chill episode, and this chill is a life check in. Today, I am going to tell you a little bit about what it was like for me to have a trampoline as a kid, and I want to talk about one of the more important teachers I had in my life as an elementary school kid. Um, I'm also going to end the show by telling you what we got coming up throughout the rest of December and maybe a peek into January. All right. Anyway, I want to start with, as I said, telling you guys about my time with a trampoline. My mom got me my first big outdoor trampoline when I was probably like 2 years old. Um, she got it for me early on and wanted me to grow up with it because the doctors had told her that it'd be a really good thing for me to have as a kid with CF. Help my lungs out a lot, and it turned out to stick. It was something that I loved growing up. I would jump on the trampoline for hours, and so I'm sure it definitely did help me keep my airways clear. Um, it also just kept me entertained and on the edge of danger for hours of my childhood. There was only a few years in my childhood when we didn't have a trampoline, but if we were living in a place where we had a yard, we had one. So whenever we moved in with my grandmother, uh, my mom got us another trampoline that we had for quite a while. One thing about having a trampoline is, especially back in that era, because all we had to do as kids was pretty much go out and explore your neighborhood. So, I became you kids see into the backyards and they'll be like, "Oh, that's the kid. That kid has a trampoline." So there would definitely be times where people would. That's how I'd make friends. They'd come and ask to jump. I say make friends. Sometimes I would make friends. There were some kids who I became really good friends with that way. Others, of course, just wanted to jump. And I'd maybe play with them once or twice before, uh, we just kind of move on from each other. Um, it was, though, like for the group of friends that were actual friends, it became one of the couple of like rotational spots. This is what we would hang out at my trampoline as we would jump around and talk about whatever it is we had to talk about as 10-year-olds. Um, it would also, like, even without people though, like I would spend my days sometimes just out either jumping, well, going back and forth between jumping, trying to see as bounce myself as high as I could, or of course trying to perfect some flip or something that I would be doing, or just kind of having in my own imaginary world that somehow always involved me being able to usually involve me fighting since I could jump up and pretend like I could do moves. But then I would wear myself out and just kind of lay down and stare up at the sky for a while and feel the breeze. Or if it's the summertime here in Texas, just feel the heat. I also really liked to go out and jump on the trampoline after it had rained when the tarp was heavy and every time you bounced, just the droplets of water would come up and then splash back down. It uh, was very, I guess, satisfying to me to see the water separate and splash back like that. Plus, just of course, as a kid who didn't love going out as an excuse to get wet and play when it was raining. We also would definitely pack it way too tight at times, especially if there was a party at one of my neighbors' houses or like one of the kids like I mentioned that was actually our friends, and we would have who knows 15, 20 kids on there just fighting for space, and we this was before having a net up, so it was very much self-governed of you don't want to get too close to the edge, you don't want to get bumped off. uh, as part of our, I guess we're gonna live forever mentality, reckless behaviors, and just trying to push the edge for fun. We would at times to try to play a game of like basically King of the Hill, only a trampoline version of not getting pushed off. We would always, to our credit, we would always try to let that be like in fall whenever we had leaves surrounding us, as if that was going to do something. And we wouldn't be bouncing super high whenever we're pushing, trying to push each other off like we're on some gladiator stage. Um, Another thing we would do though is we would love to jump at night. Uh, we would go out, and I specifically remember a lot of nights being even by myself and jumping and when it was completely dark, and just that little bit of extra adrenaline that comes with the fear of, you kind of know where the trampoline ends, but again, it's pretty dark. At some point, we added strobe lights at night to our trampoline time, and that felt like a game changer. Um, Me and my brother would spend a lot of time, just the two of us, jumping, and because of that, we would make up different games. I think my favorite, and the thing that we probably played the most, maybe because it was my favorite and I was the big brother, um, was we'd get like a soccer ball and we'd just be bouncing it and trying to not let the ball hit us. It would had a whole scoring system of, and depending on how much time we had the day, of how many points we'd be getting to. Um, because you would also be, I think part of the goal was if you caused the ball to go off, you would not only have to get it, but I think we held that against each other in the scores. But We tried to we had to even that out too, I remember, because we had to make it not just a wrestling match. We had to make it to where we couldn't just be bumping each other down and holding each other for the ball to come, but it had to be more skill based of trying to get the ball to bounce in our direction where while being and then setting up the each other to be behind us basically and not ready to dodge it. Um, I remember a lot of our imaginary play on the trampoline was we would play like we were fighting against Pokemon in some kind of war. Uh, so we would have these different, we would definitely keep ourselves entertained out there for, again, hours at a time. And we always kind of just, I guess, blew it off one by one as the springs would come undone. In fact, there was a sweet spot for a little while when a few of the springs were missing kind of almost evenly around the tarp, where it felt like we got a whole lot more bounce than we used to get. Maybe that was also just in our heads and us trying to hype up the situation and trying to make it feel good to us. But at least the way I remember it, it felt like there was a little bit of improvement before it started to become a problem. At one point, part of our trampoline ended up like becoming the pit. I say like there was a corner of it where I think three springs were missing in a row, so it would just sag. Eventually, that little corner became a bigger corner, and it it was the eventual doom of that trampoline. Before it got bad, though, I remember one time when me and my brother were out there, and we were jumping. And by the way, my grandmother had some very, very tall pecan trees, some old tall pecan trees. And I don't think that she ever once had somebody come clip the branches at all in my time of being there. Um, and this day, there was a time when, again, we were out there jumping, playing one of our games, either with the ball or maybe I was pretending to get electrocuted by a Raichu and having to fight through it. Who knows? But I remember um, as I was looking up, I hear like a big loud crack, and it still is in my mind. It feels, I remember it in slow motion. I remember at the time experiencing it, feeling like it happened in slow motion because I remember seeing the branch start to fall and hit another branch and then, of course, flip over itself and continue to come down. I remember looking over at my brother and kind of realizing the trajectory of that branch was coming down. It wasn't, I couldn't tell 100%, but it was coming down near us. And I think both, I remember kind of grabbing him, but he was already running anyway. So it's not like I yanked him out of, it saved his life. But I think I claimed it at the time as a kid. But he probably was already coming the same way that I was going, and we got out the way. And it did end up landing. It was a big enough branch that it landed where both of us were standing. It wouldn't have hit one of us, it would have hit both of us from where we were standing. And just kind of bounced for a couple times. And I remember like us kind of sitting on the trampoline just now a few feet away from where we were, where that seemed like a heavy branch. And I remember it feeling heavy to us at the time when we moved it, just landed on us. We felt like we were some action heroes that just dodged it at the last second. Uh, I wonder how long it really took for it to fall. Maybe it took like 7 seconds because it hit so many other branches on the way down, and that's why it felt like slow motion to me. But who knows? Oh, I do remember at one point somebody did try to steal the trampoline out of the backyard. Unfortunately, they let our dog out, and we never saw that dog again. Um, so that was a bummer. But and they also, as they were trying to get the trampoline out, I guess it was harder than they realized, and or they couldn't fit it on their vehicle or whatever. I don't know what the problem was, but it was moved all the way to the back fence. You could, and it was like kind of bent upwards where they were trying. It looked like they had tried to put it in a vehicle and then were setting it, just threw it down and set it back. So it got bent a little bit that time. The frame did. Um, so as we were growing with it, we had it was the frame bent a little bit, had a little bit of pit spot in the tarp. But I remember the actual end of the trampoline. I was the one that was on it when it finally gave gave one too many springs. Um, it was this time. It was a day where I was just by myself on it. I was jumping. I might have been 13, 14. I don't even know. I know that I was a teenager. I was probably maybe 15 even. Um, before it gave out. It was one of the times though where I was kind of bouncing. At this point, it was maybe three quarters of a trampoline, maybe closer to half of a trampoline, as far as the springs missing side. And so I wouldn't try to bounce as hard as crazy as I used to, but it was one of those things where it was almost. Looking back on it, maybe kind of let me get into a meditative state as I would just kind of bounce and think. Or so I was doing that, and then I would always end it with jumping and trying landing on my back and letting myself stare up at the sky. And this time though, when I went to land on my back, that last jump, me hitting on my back, is was the last bounce that trampoline had to give. The tarp tore loose from the frame, fell straight through to the ground, and I fell straight to the ground, I should say. The tarp came with me. Um, I remember it it didn't hurt too, like it softened the blow enough. Like it was this little oof for me, but it was more. I remember just kind of staying, at least giving myself that last look up at the sky moment. And it was kind of like we knew it was coming. We knew this trampoline was about to. So it wasn't really like a sad moment for me in the moment, at least. Um, but it was just like a sigh. I don't know. I don't know how else to describe the feeling. We ended up having that trampoline for, we ended up having a trampoline, like I said, for a whole lot of years, and somehow we made it through without any major injuries. So we were very lucky, and it actually gave some real physical health benefits as well as all the fun. So at least for us, it worked out. It I could easily see a scenario where at least, I don't know, six, seven more bones could have been broken, but we avoided them all. So I have nothing but good memories from my time of having a trampoline as a kid. Now, am I excited about the idea of getting my kids one? Whew, I would not be ready to see them play on a trampoline the way that I used to play. I I would have to think about that one. Luckily for me, I don't have to worry about it. I don't have to make that decision. Our yard is way too uneven. We thought about it even. So I don't have to do that because it would stress me out to picture my kids. Even if it was just playing the simpler game of don't let the ball touch you, if they were playing it with the type of daredevil attitude that we played it with, no, thank you. I would not. I would not be happy about bringing that in. All right. So anyway, let me switch gears a little bit. Get to my next story. In Texas, the fourth grade is the year that you start taking writing as a state test. So that means it's also the year that writing becomes its own subject. It is the first year where it becomes a major focus of teaching kids to write a lot more than their basic sentences, but to write their own stories, to write their own papers. And it was a subject that I loved. I loved writing. I loved learning the different kinds of writing. It's like from just basic descriptive papers, trying to be as exact in my detail and picture painting with my words as I could be, or if it was a persuasive writing, trying to be as airtight with my fourth grade logic as I could. I even liked writing directions. I remember writing a paper on how to make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, and that being one of the papers I had the most fun with. I, of course, though, loved writing stories the most. That right away drew me in. The I remember the first story that I wrote in the fourth grade. So this would be my first like fictional story I ever created. Was a um, basically a home invasion story. A kid's being a home, me, a kid being a home um, when robbers came, and I remember trying to um, not be repetitive. So, and like the first paragraph ended with I remember the big part of the things she was teaching us, and at least in this with this lesson was to try to keep a hook or a way to end a paragraph to make people want to keep reading. So like the first big hook of it was like you hearing a loud noise or something, and then so I mean the second um, big hook being that you couldn't believe what he saw, and then but I didn't want to like keep repeating myself, so I ended up just going down the senses. The next one was I ended up making the burglars cook burgers in the kid's house because I needed him to smell something. Um, and I had a whole thing where maybe it's because I liked Home Alone a lot, where the kid basically was the cause of the robbers getting caught. Um, but yeah, the main thing I remember about it was the ending each section with a different sense. My fourth grade teacher, Miss Wells, definitely fostered my love of writing, and she taught me in ways that it stuck right away and made me feel good about the writing I already was doing as a little 10-year-old and excited about trying more to do more. Besides me learning how to write and learning my love of writing, her class was also the first class that I took where learned how to take notes. She taught us how to actually make notes effective for us to be able to look at later and um, to learn something from our own notes, or to remember at least our own learning from our notes, as instead of just um, looking at them and not knowing what the hell we were writing. And it was honestly the first time as a little kid that I remember being almost excited about doing a homework assignment, or just feeling like, oh, I'm studying. It made me feel like I was doing a higher level of learning, almost like I was I guess at the time probably felt like I was a big kid in high school or college or something. Another thing that I love about Miss Wells' classroom was how she would change up her seating every few weeks. And I don't mean she would just have the kids sit in different places. She would change up like her whole entire classroom. I remember one time the entire setup was just one giant circle, as much as it could be around the classroom. Um, a lot of times it'd be in sets of threes or fours. I remember one time it had a traditional, almost what you would think of as a traditional sitting the kids in lines. That might have been how we started the year. Um, but every few weeks they would be in different shapes. And the way you'd find out your seat, you wouldn't get to go in or the desk would be empty, so you wouldn't go in and find your desk by your name or anything like that. You had to look at the chart before you went in and and you would see like basically an overhead view of of the desk and the shapes that they were in, and you'd have to see your name, and you'd have to go make sure you find the right spot that corresponds to it. It was a another way of adding, making it very fun, and adding like a spatial awareness lesson in. And honestly, I didn't even think about that part of it being a lesson until right now, retelling the story. But I just remember that always being a fun part of it. Um, she always had little things like that too that would keep things fresh. She also had a point system in her class, and where you could buy out different privileges, whether it be taking. I don't remember if taking your shoes off was one. For some reason, I was about to say that, but maybe it was, maybe it wasn't. But different little things. I know one of the more expensive ones was skipping your homework for a night. Maybe even if you had enough points, you could skip it for a 2 nights in a row. I think that was like you had to pay extra for that, more than just a double night. But I think the thing that most of us saved up for, the thing that ended up being the most sought after prize the thing we would spend our points on, is being able to just eat lunch in her classroom with her. That was always the, I guess, most exciting one for most of the kids, to be able to just sit, because she would have she would let kids do it maybe 5 or 6 at a time. She would obviously would try to limit it, but it would feel like you were, I guess, a lot more intimate, like you're in a little secret club for the day, being able to eat lunch with the teacher, and so that was always really cool. Um, a couple years later, after when I got out of her class, um, my younger brother ended up having her as a teacher in the 4th grade as well. So she taught both of us. I remember him also having nothing but good things to say about her as a teacher. And then at some point, I don't remember exactly if it was when he was her student or maybe the next following year when he was still at the school but not directly in her class. But at some point, my family, we didn't have a car at the time. It might have been after a time where one of the car crashes my mom had gotten in, or it might have been just a time where we were dealing with a vehicle that broken down. I don't remember the exact specifics. I just remember we didn't have reliable transportation, and I mean, she knew about it. She found out about it, and at one point she spoke with my mom, and she gave us her car. It was not like some old junk car or anything like that. It was a relatively new, definitely new for whatever we would have had at the time. Um, and it worked great. Um, that car lasted, I don't know, several years in our house, and my mom is hard on cars, so it was not some end of the line, end of its life vehicle. I'm trying to say, she gave it to us, and that uh, I know how much now as an adult. I know how much teacher salaries are, and how much they're not. So that just really always stuck with me as just something that it would take a really special person to do. And I really believe that that my 4th grade teacher was a really special person. Thank you, Miss Wells. For a lot of my life, tend to, I was going to say tended to, but I still do. I tend to overthink, and sometimes um, that overthinking can freeze me, and I don't do as much. Well, this is the 8th week I'm entering since relaunching the show. And I gotta say, it is both exciting and exhausting, knowing that I have been able to keep up so far and be able to follow through on the promise of bringing 3 episodes a week and keeping up with my promotions on social media to try to grow the show. Um, I feel like I've gotten into a rhythm that feels different than anything I've ever done before. It feels sustainable. It feels like I have found a way to not, it doesn't feel taxing, even though I am consistently creating more than I have done, I guess, since I was in college. It's really been a lot of fun though, and it's really been exciting for me to push myself and to stretch my brain out in different areas to be able to try to keep up with what's going on in the news a little bit more closely than I used to be able to try to stay on top of my recordings, of not letting things slide, of making sure that I am just on top of me. That's a being in control of myself, I guess, is the overall new feeling that I'm getting used to, and being that the show, I guess, is just a side effect of it. I'm really excited to say that more people are listening and choosing to listen to more and returning to listen than I would have ever imagined by this point. So I really appreciate all you out there that seem to be enjoying the show. I hope that I can keep it up and keep at a high enough standard where it keeps you coming back for more. But it's exciting so far. It's growing a little bit faster than I might have thought, at least in the beginning. I never know if there's different people that listen to just one type of episode or another, or if there's a handful of people that listen to every single type of episode. But just in case, if you're a newsish listener, I got two more. We will have me and Trisha will have two more newsish episodes before we take a couple week break for Christmas and New Year's. Um, but we will be having those episodes before the next 2 weeks, this week and next. Um, I want to promote two episodes, two of my deep dives for the coming up towards the end of December. The first deep dive I want to promote for later is my faith story that's going to come out December 19th. I'm going to talk about how I was raised as a Christian and how I fought to hold on to that belief, even as it kind of unraveled in my brain, and how I tried to get answers that would push me back into believing. And eventually, how I am now consider myself a spiritual agnostic and kind of just talk through the way that I see religion, and or at least the way that religion has affected my life. Um, and the second episode I am excited about is I'm going to be talking about the true history of Christmas. I am gonna really look at where the holiday came from, why it wasn't, spoiler alert, it wasn't actually created around Jesus Christ's birthday. Let's just start there. um, this is gonna be a historical look at it, try to keep it based in facts, and see how it turned from a pagan holiday to a Christian holiday to a capitalist holiday. Um, the last thing I will talk about for the show wise is for the future is I am very strongly considering letting all of my Tuesday episodes, once the NFL playoffs start, basically letting the NFL playoff just be a complete takeover of my Tuesday episodes. I haven't fully decided on that one yet, though, but it is something I'm considering. Um, Lastly, I guess I said that was going to be it, but I am excited about my first book club talk. I'm going to be talking about The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue. It's one of my favorite books. If you haven't read it, I suggest it. But anyway, that's what I got coming for you in the future. For now, I want to thank you guys for chilling with me. Thank you guys for listening to me, and want to remind you that you only got one life to live. You might as well enjoy it while it lasts. See you later, guys.